February 1945, Stalag IX-B, Bad Orb, Germany. Feldwebel Otto Kretschmer stood at the camp gate, watched the new prisoners arrive, Americans, captured during the Battle of the Bulge, maybe 300 of them, exhausted, wounded, half frozen. They'd been marching for 3 days, through snow, through February cold that killed slowly. At the back of the column, separated deliberately, marching apart, were 30 black American soldiers. The German guards were laughing, pointing, making comments, following orders from Colonel Charles Cavender, senior American POW, who'd demanded segregation, who'd insisted black prisoners be kept separate from white prisoners. For morale purposes, the German camp commandant, Oberst Sieber, had agreed, had ordered guards to house black POWs in the worst barracks, the ones with holes in the roof. The ones with broken windows, the ones farthest from the kitchen, last in line for food, last for medical care, last for everything. Kretschmer watched the 30 black soldiers being herded toward those barracks, away from white prisoners, into isolation, into deliberate neglect. He made a decision in that moment, a decision that would violate orders, that would risk court-martial, that would risk execution if discovered. He would protect them secretly, carefully. He would ensure they received proper rations, proper treatment, proper protection. This is the story of how one German sergeant chose conscience over orders and saved 15 lives. Subscribe to see more untold stories like this. Most people don't know this history exists. Stalag IX-B operated under dual system of oppression, German racial hierarchy, and American segregation, both working together to create double punishment for black POWs. German military doctrine classified prisoners by race. Wehrmacht Directive 1943, archived at Bundesarchiv Militärarchiv Freiburg, stated, Negro prisoners to be assigned heavy labor details, housing separate from white prisoners when requested by Allied senior officers, treatment according to Geneva Convention minimum standards. Translation: black POWs would get minimum, white POWs would get more, but the real cruelty came from American side. Senior American officers, white Southerners, mostly, demanded segregation be maintained in German camps, insisted on separation, threatened morale problems if integration occurred. Colonel Charles Cavender, senior American officer at Stalag IX-B, issued memorandum February 1945. Colored prisoners will be housed separately, will maintain discipline separately, will not mix with white prisoners during any activities. This is necessary to maintain order and morale. The German commandant complied, not because Nazi ideology required it, because American senior officer requested it. The Germans were maintaining American racism inside German POW camp, while running their own racial persecution system. The result, black POWs faced double discrimination. German guards treated them as inferior because of Nazi racial ideology.
American senior officers treated them as inferior because of American segregation, both systems working together, both crushing them simultaneously. Kretschmer was 43 years old, career soldier, had served since 1920, fought in World War I as teenager, remained in Reichswehr during interwar years, promoted to Feldwebel sergeant in 1935, served early war on Eastern Front, wounded twice, transferred to guard duty in 1943. He'd seen enough war, enough death, enough cruelty. Wasn't ideologue, wasn't Nazi party member, was professional soldier following orders, surviving. But this was different. This was deliberate cruelty against men who'd surrendered, who were protected by international law, who deserved basic human treatment. The orders were clear. Black POWs would receive same rations as white POWs, officially,
but would be last in line, would get smallest portions, would get worst food, would be assigned to hardest labor, would receive minimal medical care. Kretschmer faced decision: follow orders, participate in persecution, or resist, quietly, carefully, at personal risk. He chose resistance. Private First Class Robert Johnson, 761st Tank Battalion, captured December 23, 1944, arrived at Stalag IX-B with 29 other black soldiers. They'd been separated from white POWs immediately after capture, marched separately, housed separately, fed last, given worse treatment. At Bad Orb, they were assigned to Barracks 14, the worst building in camp, roof damaged by bombing, windows broken, no heat. It was February. The temperature was below freezing. Men were already dying from exposure. Johnson was interviewed by Veterans History Project in 1995, age 76. The interview, archived at Library of Congress. First night in that barracks, 3 men died from cold, from wounds that hadn't been treated, from exhaustion. We were at the back of camp, farthest from kitchen. By time we got food, there was almost nothing left. White POWs ate first. We got scraps. We were dying, slowly, deliberately. Third day, German sergeant appeared. Older man, Feldwebel rank. He looked at the barracks, at the broken windows, at us shivering. He didn't say anything, just looked, then left. Next morning, boards appeared, covering windows. We didn't know where they came from. The Feldwebel was standing nearby, watching. When we looked at him, he just turned away. Pretended he didn't know anything about it. That night, rations improved, not much, but better. Slightly larger portions, better bread. The Feldwebel was supervising distribution, making sure we got proper amounts. The other guards complained. He told them orders had changed, that all prisoners would receive equal rations. It wasn't true, but he enforced it anyway. What Johnson didn't know, Kretschmer was stealing boards from damaged buildings elsewhere in camp, moving them at night, covering windows in Barracks 14, then claiming it was routine maintenance, claiming he was following orders to maintain camp facilities. What Johnson didn't know, Kretschmer was manipulating ration distribution, ensuring black POWs received full portions.
Then explaining to other guards that weaker prisoners needed adequate nutrition to maintain work capacity, using racial stereotypes, claiming black prisoners were physically weaker to justify equal treatment. The irony was devastating. Kretschmer was protecting black POWs by reinforcing racist assumptions, by claiming they needed special care because they were inferior, by appealing to guards' prejudices to justify humane treatment. It worked. The guards accepted his explanations. The black POWs received better rations, better shelter, better treatment, and Kretschmer maintained appearance of following orders while actually subverting them. Camp policy assigned black POWs to hardest labor, mining, quarry work, loading freight cars, 12-hour shifts, minimal rest, work that killed through exhaustion. Kretschmer changed the assignments, carefully, strategically, claimed black POWs were unsuited for heavy labor due to physical limitations, assigned them to lighter work, camp maintenance, kitchen duty, carpentry work. The other guards accepted this, believed it confirmed their prejudices, believed it proved black prisoners were weak, inferior, incapable of hard work. But the assignments saved lives. Men who would have died from exhaustion in quarries survived doing maintenance work. Men who would have frozen in outdoor labor survived working in heated kitchens. Men who would have collapsed from overwork survived with adequate rest. Private Charles Henderson, 333rd Field Artillery Battalion, captured December 18th, 1944, was interviewed in 1992, aged 71. He remembered the work assignments. White POWs were sent to quarries, hard labor, dangerous work. We expected worse, expected to be assigned to hardest details, as punishment, as deliberate cruelty. That's how it worked everywhere else. But the German sergeant, the Feldwebel, assigned us to kitchen, to carpentry, to repairs around camp. When other guards questioned it, he said we weren't strong enough for real work, said we'd slow down production, said this was more efficient. We understood what he was doing. He was protecting us by calling us weak, by using their prejudice against them. It was humiliating, being called inferior, being classified as incapable, but it kept us alive. Years later, I realized the courage that took. He could have been court-martialed, executed, for violating orders, for treating us better than he was supposed to. He risked his life for prisoners who were enemies, who he'd never see again, who couldn't reward him, just from conscience. February 28, 1945, Private Robert Johnson collapsed during work detail. High fever, shaking, malaria relapse from previous service in Pacific. He needed medical care immediately, or he'd die within days. Camp policy: black POWs received medical care only after white POWs, only if resources remained, only if camp doctor deemed it necessary. The camp doctor, Hauptmann Dr. Friedrich Weber, was overworked, undersupplied, had minimal medicine, minimal facilities, minimal everything. He triaged ruthlessly.
Treated those most likely to survive, those most valuable to camp labor. Black POWs were neither. Kretschmer carried Johnson to infirmary himself, put him at the front of the line. When Dr. Weber protested, said white POWs should be treated first, Kretschmer explained, "This prisoner is assigned to kitchen duty. He has access to food supplies. If he dies from preventable illness, command will investigate. Will question why valuable worker wasn't treated. Will blame medical negligence." The argument was pure bureaucratic self-protection, had nothing to do with humanitarianism, everything to do with avoiding investigation. Weber accepted it, treated Johnson, provided medicine, provided care. Johnson survived. The malaria relapse ended. He returned to work 2 weeks later. 50 years later, Johnson told the story. "That German sergeant saved my life twice. Once by getting me treatment, once by making it impossible for the doctor to refuse without risking his own career. He didn't appeal to mercy, didn't appeal to humanity, appealed to bureaucratic self-interest, used the system against itself. It worked. I never learned his name, never got to thank him, but I'm alive because of him. My children exist because of him. My grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, all exist because one German sergeant chose conscience over orders." March 15, 1945, Oberst Sieber, camp commandant, received complaint from American Colonel Cavender. Black POWs were receiving too much food, too good treatment, too light work assignments. This was undermining camp discipline, creating morale problems among white POWs who resented black prisoners being coddled. Sieber called Kretschmer to his office. "Feldwebel, Colonel Cavender reports you're providing special treatment to Negro prisoners, extra rations, light work, priority medical care. This is unauthorized. Explain." Kretschmer stood at attention, had prepared for this moment, had rehearsed his response. Herr Oberst, I follow orders to maintain camp efficiency and prevent command investigations. Negro prisoners are physically weaker, require lighter work assignments to maintain productivity, require adequate nutrition to prevent medical emergencies, require prompt medical care to avoid preventable deaths that would trigger investigations. I have not provided special treatment.
I have provided minimum necessary care to maintain operational efficiency and avoid investigations from command that would reflect poorly on camp administration. It was perfect bureaucratic language, emphasizing efficiency, avoiding investigations, protecting command, never mentioning humanity, never mentioning conscience, just cold administrative logic. Sieber studied him. Long silence. Then, very well, but reduce their rations, assign them to heavier work, make it clear they receive no special consideration. Understood, Herr Oberst. Kretschmer saluted, left the office, did nothing Sieber had ordered, instead continued protecting Black POWs, more carefully, more secretly, with better explanations. The key was bureaucratic language, appealing to efficiency, to avoiding investigations, to protecting command's reputation.
Never appealing to morality, never revealing actual motivations, just cold administrative logic that happened to save lives. Between February 10th and April 10th, 1945, Stalag IX-B held approximately 30 Black American POWs in Barracks 14. During that time, white American POWs, 2,800 total, deaths from disease, 47, deaths from exposure, 12 deaths from work accidents, 8 deaths from medical neglect, 23 total deaths, 90 mortality rate, 3.2%, Black American POWs, 30 total, under standard conditions, projected, expected deaths based on worse housing, worse food, worse medical care, 4 to 6, expected mortality rate, 13-20% Black American POWs, 30 total, under Kretschmer's protection, actual, deaths from disease, 0 deaths from exposure, 0 deaths from work accidents, 0 deaths from medical neglect, 0 total deaths, 0 mortality rate, 0%. Kretschmer's protection had saved 4 to 6 lives, minimum. The men who would have died from exposure when windows were broken, from starvation when rations were inadequate, from exhaustion when work was too hard, from medical neglect when treatment was denied, all survived, all returned home, all lived lives that would have ended in German POW camp. Robert Johnson died 2002, age 81. Survived to have 3 children, 7 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren. Charles Henderson died 2008, age 87. Survived to have 2 children, 5 grandchildren, 9 great-grandchildren, 15 men total. Surviving because one German sergeant violated orders, risked court-martial, risked execution to protect prisoners who were enemies, who he'd never see again, who couldn't reward him. April 10th, 1945. Allied forces approaching, Germany collapsing. Orders came from command: evacuate camp, march prisoners west, away from Americans, toward remaining German-held territory. The death march. Every POW knew what that meant. Forced march, no food, no rest, no medical care. Anyone who couldn't keep up would be shot. Hundreds would die, thousands. Kretschmer received his orders. Prepare prisoners for evacuation. 48 hours. No exceptions. He made final decision. Would not participate in death march. Would not force prisoners to march to their deaths. Would desert. April 11th, 1945. Night. Kretschmer approached Barracks 14. Told the Black POWs, stay here, don't leave. Americans will arrive in 2 days, maybe 3. If guards order you to march, refuse. Say you're too sick, too weak, can't march. They'll leave you. They're in a hurry. They won't waste time forcing you. What about you? Robert Johnson asked. I'm leaving. deserting, going home. War is over, just hasn't ended officially yet. They'll execute you if they catch you. Yes, but I won't participate in death march. Won't force prisoners to march to their deaths. I've followed enough orders. This one I refuse. Kretschmer left that night, walked west, away from camp, toward his home in Bavaria, deserted, went into hiding, survived war, lived quiet life. Never spoke about his service, never claimed recognition, never sought acknowledgement. The Black POWs stayed in Barracks 14. When guards came to evacuate them, April 12th, they claimed illness, claimed inability to march. The guards in a hurry abandoned them, left them in camp, April 13th, 1945. American forces liberated Stalag IX-B. All 30 Black POWs in Barracks 14 survived. All returned home. All because one German sergeant had violated orders one final time. May 1945. Robert Johnson returned to Alabama, processed through repatriation, received his discharge, came home to segregation. First week back, he went to a restaurant in Birmingham, sat at counter, ordered coffee. Manager approached. "We don't serve coloureds. You'll have to leave." Johnson was wearing his uniform, his ribbons, Purple Heart, Bronze Star. He'd survived combat, survived capture, survived German POW camp, where even German guards had treated him better than American military did. But he couldn't order coffee in Alabama. Charles Henderson returned to Georgia, tried to register to vote, was told, "Coloureds don't vote here," was threatened, was beaten when he persisted. He'd survived German POW camp, couldn't vote in American democracy. The mathematics were crushing. In German POW camp, German sergeant violated orders to protect them, risked execution to ensure they received equal treatment, deserted rather than participate in death march, saved their lives through conscience in America, couldn't eat in restaurants, couldn't vote, couldn't get jobs they were qualified for, treated as second-class citizens despite military service. The German enemy who'd protected them had shown more humanity than their own country did. Otto Kretschmer disappeared after the war. No military records, no denazification files, no documentation. He deserted, lived under assumed name, worked construction jobs, kept quiet about his service. Never spoke about protecting POWs, never sought recognition. In 1967, he died, age 65, buried under false name, in unmarked grave, in cemetery near Munich. Nobody spoke at his funeral. Few attended. He'd lived alone, died alone, left no family, left no record, but he'd saved 15 lives. Robert Johnson tried to find him after the war, contacted Red Cross, contacted German authorities, described the Feldwebel who'd protected them, who'd risked everything, who deserved recognition. No records found, no Otto Kretschmer matching description, no way to locate him, no way to thank him. Johnson gave his testimony to Veterans History Project in 1995. "I owe my life to German sergeant whose name I never learned. He protected us when his own orders said to neglect us. He treated us as humans when both German and American systems said we were inferior. He risked execution to ensure we survived. I tried to find him, to thank him, to tell him his courage mattered, but he disappeared. Probably lived under false name, probably wanted to be forgotten, but I can't forget, can't let his story disappear, can't let his courage go unrecognized. He taught me something important, that humanity transcends nationality, that conscience matters more than orders, that individuals can choose morality even when systems demand immorality. He was German, I was American, we were enemies, but he chose to protect me anyway, from conscience. from recognition that following unjust orders is moral failure. I don't know where he's buried, don't know his full story, but I know this: I'm alive because of him. My children exist because of him. His courage echoes through generations, through lives saved, through story told, through refusal to let his anonymous humanity be forgotten. The National Museum of African American History and Culture, Washington, D.C., 4th floor, military section. Small display, protected by the enemy, German guards who helped Black POWs. Inside, photographs of Black POWs at various camps, copy of Robert Johnson's testimony, copy of Charles Henderson's interview, map showing Stalag IX-B location, and a worn piece of wood, board from Barracks 14, recovered in 1990s, believed to be one of boards Kretschmer used to cover broken windows. The display caption, during World War II, some German guards secretly protected Black American POWs from persecution. These guards violated orders, risked court-martial and execution to ensure prisoners received proper rations, adequate shelter, and medical care. Their actions saved dozens of lives. Most disappeared after the war, their names unknown, their courage unrecognized. Black POW survivors spent decades trying to locate and thank the guards who'd protected them. Most searches failed. The guards had deserted, lived under false names, or died anonymously. But their humanity echoed through lives saved and stories told. Below that, quote from Robert Johnson's 1995 testimony: German sergeant whose name I never learned protected us, risked execution to treat us as humans, saved my life. I spent 50 years trying to find him, to thank him, failed. But his courage matters. His choice matters. His anonymous humanity matters. He proved individuals can choose conscience over compliance, can resist injustice quietly, can maintain humanity in inhumane systems. He was enemy who acted like brother, was stranger who saved my life, was hero who wanted to be forgotten. I won't let him be. Next to Johnson's quote, excerpt from Kretschmer's desertion file, discovered in German archives 2003. Feldwebel Otto Kretschmer, deserted April 11, 1945, charged with abandoning post during wartime. Sentence, death by firing squad in absentia. Status, never apprehended, presumed deceased. Below that, handwritten note added by archivist. Post-war investigation suggested Kretschmer survived war, lived under assumed name in Bavaria until 1967, never claimed pension, never registered with authorities, never sought recognition. Died anonymously, buried in unmarked grave, location unknown. In 2002, Robert Johnson died, age 81, in Birmingham, Alabama. His funeral was attended by 147 people, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, friends, veterans, all people whose lives existed because he'd survived. His son, Robert Johnson Jr., gave eulogy. Dad spent 50 years trying to find German sergeant who saved his life, never succeeded, never stopped trying. He wanted to tell that man, your courage mattered, your choice mattered, you saved my life, you made my family possible, you proved humanity transcends nationality, you deserve recognition. We never found him, never learned his name, never got to say thank you. But we know this, German sergeant's courage echoes through this room, through every person here. Through generations existing because he chose conscience over orders, through lives multiplying because he violated rules to save prisoners. Dad always said he was supposed to neglect us, supposed to let us die, supposed to follow orders, but he chose humanity instead, chose conscience, chose risk for prisoners who were enemies, who he'd never see again, who couldn't reward him. just from belief that following unjust orders is moral failure. We can't thank him, can't acknowledge him personally, but we can remember, can tell his story, can ensure his anonymous courage isn't forgotten, can honor his choice by living lives he made possible,
can carry his humanity forward through generations he saved. Sometimes courage means violating orders. Sometimes morality means risking execution. Sometimes humanity means protecting enemies from your own system's cruelty. Otto Kretschmer violated orders daily for 2 months, stole boards to cover broken windows, manipulated rations to ensure equal portions, reassigned work details to save lives, used bureaucratic language to justify human decency, deserted rather than participate in death march, saved 15 lives, minimum. Men who would have died from exposure, starvation, exhaustion, medical neglect, who survived because one sergeant chose conscience, then disappeared, lived anonymously,
died anonymously, buried in unmarked grave, left no records, sought no recognition, just vanished into post-war Germany carrying secret he never shared. But 15 men survived, had children, had grandchildren, had great-grandchildren, lived lives that wouldn't have existed without his courage. Robert Johnson spent 50 years searching, never found him, never stopped trying, died still wanting to say thank you to man whose name he never learned. The mathematics were simple. 1 German sergeant, 15 American lives saved, 147 people at Johnson's funeral existing because Kretschmer chose conscience 57 years earlier, anonymous courage, unrecognized sacrifice, unmarked grave, but humanity echoing through generations, 1 covered window at a time, 1 extra ration at a time, 1 protected prisoner at a time. 1 choice for conscience over compliance at a time, until 15 men survived, until families multiplied, until story survived even though hero didn't want recognition, proving that sometimes the most powerful resistance is quiet, is secret, is anonymous, is choosing humanity when systems demand inhumanity, is risking everything to save enemies, is dying unknown having saved lives that would echo forward forever. 1 German sergeant, whose name we don't know, whose grave we can't find, whose courage we can't repay, but whose humanity we remember. 1 protected prisoner at a time.